Good evening. Thank you all for being here. And Mina, thank you for inviting us this evening. As we were on our way out here, we were talking to a dear friend from the church, and they told us that they thought it was a little too early for us, or they thought it was a bit too much for us. But one of the things we wanted to talk about today was how Sophia's presence in our lives actually transformed our lives, and how unexpectedly we had an amazing amount of peace throughout this entire process. And it's something that I could have never imagined. It's something that we've talked about a lot, and something that we anticipated would be great if it happened. But in all reality, I don't think any of us expected to have this amount of peace in our lives. We're still flesh and blood. We're still humans. We have moments of weakness. But the overwhelming majority of the time since Sophia's departure, it has been amazingly peaceful, and I credit that to having the feeling of her presence around us as if she never departed. It's something that I can't articulate into words, even though it's my job to be able to articulate things into words, but I simply cannot. It's by the grace of God. And I feel selfish in not sharing the stories, because God did not just send her for us, but for us to share our experiences with her and what we've learned in her short life with us. So what I'd like to do is start by sharing a little bit of the history about how Sophia came about. We have our first angel, Angelina, sitting here with us today. After about 5 years, we decided that we wanted to have another child. And God decided it wasn't time for that yet. So there's almost a 9-year difference between the two of them. And when she came around, another bundle of joy, another smiling, pretty baby, and it was just, it was an awesome experience for all of us. And then one thing happened at about a little over the age of 2 years old. We realized that Sophia. We realized that Sophia not walking was for a reason. She wasn't progressing like normal children were. And with that in mind, we were comfortable leaving her on the second story of our house. It was not an issue, because we never imagined that. We knew physically she couldn't come down those stairs or hurt herself coming down the stairs. And at one point, we heard her downstairs, both my wife and I, and we rushed over at the foot of the stairwell and asked her, "Did you fall? How did you get down here?" And with a very calm smile, she said, "Don't worry. Baba Yeshua held my hand and walked me down the stairs." That not only sent chills down my spine, but it also left a very funny feeling in my stomach, because I knew there was something very special about her. And when you have somebody that special around you, they normally don't hang around forever. So it was just the beginning of many experiences that we felt and we experienced with her. And some of the stories I'm going to share with you are more about how she transformed our lives. I used to think that I was a very positive person. In the police academy, I discovered that my blood type was B positive, and that's how I chose to live my life. But Sophia taught me that I knew nothing about being positive, because every time we encountered a life-altering event or something very, very significant that affected the household, we were in a hurry to try to find a human solution. And she was the first to say things that we should be saying to our children. Let's pray. Concentrate on God, and everything's going to be okay. These are the things that our young child was telling us. And quite frankly, I was embarrassed many times, because it should be the other way around. Not that I'm complaining, but she just was reminding me of how little we knew about life and about God, and how, I guess you can say, hypocritical we have been throughout our lives, thinking that we know better and that we are actually in control of our lives and that we can figure out solutions. And she reminded us that we are nothing without God, which is something that we are constantly told, and it's something that we learn about quite a bit growing up in the church, but it just never hit home like it did with Sophia. Before I move on to, I would say, probably the last 6 to 12 months with some examples, I want to give Nermine an opportunity, because she complains that I talk too much. So, go ahead.
I'm gonna start by saying the way we discovered her disease. We noticed some kind of a curve in her back, and we took her to the orthopedic, and he said there's nothing to worry about, but just for the sake of it, I want you to go and see a genetic doctor. And I remember I went there. It was the first appointment that I never cared about, and I figured it's going to be just like one of those appointments that just a regular checkup for doctors to cover their liability. As soon as she saw her, she said, "Your daughter has a muscular dystrophy." And I never knew what's muscular dystrophy. And I said, "Okay, let's go ahead and medicine." She said, "There is no medicine for this. Do you understand what's muscular dystrophy?" I said, "No." "Physical therapy?" She said, "No. We need to do genetic testing in order for us to know which type of a muscular dystrophy." So apparently there is a lot of types. And I felt like something hit me in the face, and I don't know how I got home that day. But I remember when I was leaving, the case manager said, "Please do not look up muscular dystrophy online because it's scary." And that scared me more, and I had to dig deep. And we were left for almost a month and a half to find out which type of muscular dystrophy, because some of them were like the least effective on girls. And the first thing we found out, it's inherited, which means one of the parents are carrying this gene or this disease and pass it to one of the kids. And that killed me more because it's like a guilt feeling. I know I did not cause this, but I'm the one who asked for another child. And it did teach me in the beginning, don't ask for something you don't know what's the result of it. An old friend told me a long time ago, pray for what's in your best interest. And I never understood this till I went through with what Sophia is going through. We might think this is good for us, but it's not. I thought the whole disease and the whole thing with Sophia, it's not good for me. But I learned also that, number one, I pray for what's in my best interest, because only God knows what's coming next. We cannot judge. And second, to trust that He can turn anything that we think is bad into a blessing. And that's the whole meeting about this. This turned to be in one of the biggest blessings we can ever go through in our life. And I don't think we can reach that blessing unless we go through pain, because it has to be worth it at the end. On top of it, we found out when they asked the parents us to do some testing, we found out it's not inherited, and it's 1 in millions. And she doesn't have one type of muscular dystrophy. She has a gene, it's mutated, it's called LMNA gene, and that gene literally controls, it comes with 3 type of muscular dystrophy, and it controls every single muscle in the body. So basically kind of like destroyed, except of the brain. The next thing we found out that at a 2-year-old, she can talk. I had a kid before, so I know how kids develop, and I noticed that she can make sentences. And when I asked the doctor how, she said, muscular dystrophy people, they have deficiency in something, so they get more advanced in something else. And it turned to be that God chose speech, because literally this kid was not talking as her age. She was always above her age. And He chose the speech so she can be able to tell us a lot of the other stuff. So I'm going to get the mic back to John, and then we're going to keep going.
So we talked about a gene mutating, and just so you're all aware, the odds, and I'm not a betting man, but I will tell you, the odds are 1 in several million that a gene mutates for it to result in the mutation that led to her muscular dystrophy. But more importantly, the fact that she got that type of muscular dystrophy was 1 in several more million. So I'm not a statistician. I can't tell you when you multiply them how they come out to, but the odds are very, very high that they get to that point. And it was a disease unlike any other, where there is no cure, there's no man, there's no doctor, there's no medicine that can do anything for it. It was literally the only source of hope we had was in God. And that's where I'll start by saying I discovered that I was a hypocrite, because while I used to pray and say, "Thy will be done," at the end of the prayer, I used to say, "Please heal Sophia," as if I knew what was in her best interest. And then I also discovered that I was pretty arrogant because I'm trying to tell God what to do with his creation, because as if I knew more than him. So in Sophia, I was reminded of 1 Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." And then Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." We've all heard these verses before, but I have never truly applied them, because every time I used to trick myself into believing, well, God also says that you have to do your part and let him do his part. Well, guess what? You also have to learn how to let go. Yes, you have to do your part. Don't test God. Don't jump in front of a speeding train and say, well, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. We have to do our part, but we also have to let go and let God do his part. So how did I deal with the whys? Because many people, friends and loved ones, the first question is why? What good can come out of this? Why would he do this to a child? We've had people, when they were offering their condolences, say things like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know that Sophia was suffering." Well, I'm here to tell you, Sophia never suffered. If anybody that knows Sophia knows that she had a huge smile on her face at all times. There was nothing that can get that girl down. She was a prankster. She was always, doing jokes with us. She was always hiding things from us. And she just had what I call an infectious smile. People radiated towards her, and there's a reason. We now know why. Regarding the whys, I will share this with you. As a logical person, not very emotional, I like to think of things from a logical perspective. So the only way I can turn my mind off and stop with the whys was 2 golden rules, and I'll tell you a little story about that. My first at McDonald's, and in our manager's office, they had the 2 golden rules. Rule number 1, the customer is always right. Rule number 2, when the customer isn't, refer back to rule number 1. So it was, it just eliminates any arguing or anything like that. So the 2 rules I kind of set up in my mind was, rule number 1, God loves us unconditionally, does everything for our benefit, and will never do anything to harm us. If I ever question God's will or his intent or the why, just refer back to rule number 1. Because if you really think about that, if you truly believe that God loves us unconditionally, does everything for our benefit, and will never do anything to harm us, then it doesn't matter what the why is. What if we never find out the reason? It doesn't matter, because we believe and we have faith that God loves us unconditionally, does everything for our benefit, and will never do anything to harm us. For me, that worked. It wasn't quite the same for everybody else, but it certainly, we can call it a defense mechanism. People have asked me if I was numb or in shock. I choose to believe rule number 1, and whenever my mind starts to wander, I just go back to rule number 1, and it ends it for me.
I'll go a little bit back, and I'm going to say I always loved Pope Carolus. I always read about his miracles, his way of being around us and involved in our life. So when we had a hard time getting pregnant with Sophia, I went to Saint Mina, and I prayed, and I said, "You pray to God to give me a child. A boy or girl, I don't care, but that's going to be your child." And honestly, within 3 weeks, I found out we're expecting. We didn't know a boy or girl, but we found out we're expecting. And because I was over 35, doctor had to do that. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but women over 35, they are at high risk of pregnancy. They have to do kind of like some genetic testing to see as early as they can if there is any problem with Down syndrome or any genetic problem, and to give the parents the option to terminate the pregnancy. And they came back, they said, as a bonus, we'll let you know if it's a girl and a boy. And she came back clean. No problem with his genetic, any problems, did not detect anything, and it was a girl. So we chose the name Sophia. When she was diagnosed, I was upset. I'm a normal human, I love my kid, and any mother will protect her kid as much as they can. And I said, this is what's happening. Now we have to transfer her to a GI, a cardiologist, and a bunch of other doctors that she has to be seeing yearly. And we had to go through a feeding tube because she had a lot of lack of nutrition normally, and we tried all the other ways. I asked why. I'm like, I asked you for a girl, I asked you for a kid, and you gave me a kid. Everything was nice and dandy for like as long as she turned 2 years, and everything is going downhill. But I remember going on Facebook or opening the Bible, and God was sending me one verse, and that verse disappeared when I understood what it is. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. I couldn't understand it. And it was so, I felt like God is arguing with me, and he's like, I'm like, if you're trying to answer me, give me something I can understand. I went online, I searched Abuna Dawood, I searched all the waza that I can find anything that can explain this verse to me. And literally it was almost 3 times a week he would throw this verse in front of me. By a way or another, I listened to any Coptic channel, I listen anywhere, this verse is in front of me. And the more frustration it was, I cannot understand it. I did understand it. I thought he was talking about me. But at the end, I understood he wanted to tell me, I give you this helpless child that is only a few years old. On top of it, she cannot do anything. She can only talk, but physically she cannot do anything. But you're going to see how I'm going to use this child the way I'm going to use her. She can do stuff, literally, that no adult can do. Back then, Sophia, one time she was sitting on the couch and she was waving at the corner and the ceiling, and we're like, who you're waving at? She was such a little kid. She said, Abuna's here. I said, where's Abuna? She's like, oh, he's leaving now. And we didn't know who it was. The only Abuna she knew was Abuna John. Said, is it Abuna John? She said no. So for some reason, I remember that I asked Pope Corollas for her. And I got a picture and I asked her, is that Abuna? She said yes. So I knew it, he was her guardian, and I know it, he's the one who prayed for God to deliver this, but it's going to be a little bit of a special kid, not going to be a normal kid. And she always had this connection with Pope Corollas, and she would wake up, or if I dress her, she's like, why he's not smiling? I went and I got from the library, I asked Rita back then if she can get me a picture of Pope Corollas so I can put it in her room. And I said, just a normal size. She got me the humongous picture ever. And it has one of Sophia's wall in her room. So she always sees him before she goes to sleep and as soon as she wakes up. And then she comes and says, why he's upset? Why he doesn't smile? I said, did he ever yell at you? She's like, no, but he's always upset. I said, he's a serious guy. And she's like, I want him to smile. That's how innocent it is with kids and saints and all of this. And I always remember the other verse that if we're not going to go back to be kids, we're not going to be able to enter heaven. Because you live with a kid, anyone who has kids, they understand they are very innocent. You teach them, pray, they pray. You teach them, let's go to church. You have to put this in them when they are kids. She used to fight. Because at the end I was really tired to carry her around because she does not want to be in the stroller. She wanted to use me or her dad as her hands and feet. And I took care of her 24 hours, and it was like hectic to be able to come to church on Sunday. Or if I'm tired and I've been up all night because I had issues with a feeding tube, to bring her to church on Friday. She's like, aren't we going to go to church? I said, please, I can't today. No, Mama, we have to go. Mom, I have to go. You have to take me. And I felt embarrassed, but then I felt this is what God wants us to do. She would pray every single night. She was too young to teach her the Lord Prayer, and we had only like a small prayer that we created together, and she memorized it. And if one day she's tired, she asked me, do you think Baba is going to be upset with me that I cannot pray? I'm like, no, he knows. He knows what's inside your heart. He knows that you're tired. He knows you need to get to sleep. Just thank him before you. None of the days she prayed for herself, for Baba Yesua to heal her. Because in her state of mind, she didn't think she's sick. She never said, "What's wrong with me?" She never complained that she cannot run like other kids. It didn't even cross her mind. The only thing I remember she said once, she said, "I wish I can go to regular school like Angelina because I was planning to do homeschooling. And if I can dribble basketball." That's her only wish. She never said why this is happening to me. She never said why I cannot lift up my bottle of water and drink. You have to help me get to drink. She never complained. And on top of it, she's always smiling. She gets happy when people come to visit us. And she always thought that she's an adult and can carry conversation with an adult.
So, as you can imagine, having Sophia around really changed our lives, and she taught us about what I like to call first world problems. When we complain that maybe, my cell phone battery's running low, or I can't, it's not as loud as somebody else's phone or something like that. She had some real issues from the flesh and blood perspective, yet she never complained about it, and she was consistently happy and accepted her state of being. It was a true blessing for her to remind us anytime we think we want to complain about something, all we have to do is think about what Sophia is dealing with and remember that it really isn't an issue. One thing I wanted to clarify, because I didn't mean to send the wrong message if I did. I don't think that we should never ask God why, but from a different perspective. What I mean by that is, rather than questioning God and asking, why are you doing this? Why are you letting this happen? Rather, it should be, if there is a lesson or a message for me in this, I don't see it. If it is according to your will, please help me see it. And why do I say that? Because sometimes he allows us to experience things not for our benefit, but for other people's benefit. So if it isn't according to his will for us to see it, it's okay. It doesn't mean that it's bad or it's something that we absolutely have to know. We may live the rest of our lives not knowing the reason why something happened, but if you go back to the 2 golden rules again, God loves us unconditionally, will never do anything to harm us, and does everything for our benefit. It's okay if we don't get the answer to our why, because ultimately we know that he will never do anything to harm us. And that's very important, because there were a lot of tough moments for us. She had, how many surgeries? 3? 2. So she had to experience 2 surgeries during her lifetime. One was to insert the feeding tube. Another one was to attempt to lengthen the Achilles tendons in both her feet, because her feet had dropped. And it was a risk. Every time we went in, there was a risk because of the fact that her muscular dystrophy made it very difficult for her to come out of anesthesia. So it was a calculated risk that we felt we needed to take, and through God's grace and his mercy, she made it through it. But it wasn't an easy decision to make those decisions. Until now, I think I know why the first surgery happened, because towards the end she got all her medication through the feeding tube and she refused to take anything orally. And I don't know how we would have been able to deal with the pain at the end, but until the last moment, she was being herself. 3 days before she departed, she started speaking, and she was on very heavy meds every 4 hours. And Angelina was close by, Nermine and I were close by, and she goes, "Hey, guess what I'm eating?" And she hadn't eaten in 5 days, and I thought she was hallucinating. And I said, "What?" She goes, "Nothing." And then we all laughed. I mean, it was just amazing, her sense of humor and her ability to just be a fighter. So today's topic, from what I understood it, is, in as much pain there is, with as much peace he provides, and aligning one's will to that of God's. I think that if there's one takeaway we really want to share with you all, is that we are human, we are flesh and blood, we will have our times of doubt and our times of struggles, but if we focus on God. And I'll share another thing with you. I used to smoke cigarettes for 30 years, and Sophia used to bug me about it. And then one time she said, "Dad, I thought you said you were going to quit." And this was about 2 months ago, where I was quitting. And I said, "Yeah, but I'm having a hard time." And she said, it's easy. All you have to do is concentrate on God. And it was just simply amazing how simple the solutions can be. And it's not a matter of just repeating things. It's a matter of believing it. And we were truly blessed by having Sophia in our lives to remind us of that. Because, again, as much as I thought I knew, I really didn't know anything until Sophia graced us in our lives and taught us these life lessons. And I know that we have a lot more lessons to learn. But I really wanted to share all this with you because I grew up here. I've been here since I was 6 months old. I worked here. I went to school here. And I've seen things. I've done things. But it's the association with church. It's the bond that I have with people from church, with Abuna John, that keeps us going, because there are a whole lot of trials and tribulations, as they say, and the only true way is to stay close to God.
I'm going to talk about two important things that I learned, or God answered me when I asked why in the beginning, why she has to go through this. Number one, I was in pain, she was not. And I learned that sometimes God will let us know the answer why, but most of the time he's not, because he wants us to trust him. Back in September last year, she was going to physical therapy and occupational therapy 3 times a week. One of the days where I was driving her, she asked me, "Where's Baba Yesua?" I said, "He's in heaven." She said, "Where is heaven?" For a child to ask where is heaven, why would you even ask about heaven? All what you know is Baba Yesua and Adnan, Pope Carolus, and some saints. I said, "It's back behind the sky." She said, "What does it look like?" I said, "I never went there, but I heard a lot of stories that Baba Yesua took some people there and brought them back, and they said it's beautiful, full of garden, full of butterfly, doesn't have any nighttime, it always has daylight, and all the people are good there. Why you're asking?" She said, "Because Baba Yesua came and told me he's going to take me with him to heaven." I kind of like parked the car because I couldn't concentrate. I said, "When did he tell you that?" She said, "Right now." I said, "When?" She said, "He was sitting next to me and he had his white dress and he told me he's going to take me to heaven." So I wanted to know where is heaven and how it looks like. I was scared. I asked why. Now you decided to take her away from me and she only barely turned 4. And I was upset. But then I had literally that time I had to give up. I couldn't fight anymore. I was trying to be the good mom, to take her to doctors, find a way, find a solution to keep her around. And at this point, I'm like, his will be done. I didn't understand why, but it might be silly for anyone, but usually Sophia gets her echo and cardiologist checkup every year in October. She was scheduled for her last surgery with her Achilles back in March, like March forward. And I got a phone call 2 weeks after, doctor saying there is an opening in Halloween because no mom want to get her kids for surgery on Halloween day. Would you take it or you want to wait till March? And then I remembered the message, maybe this is her time and he wants to take her. And we think we know it all, but actually we don't. I said, I'll take the surgery. And I was so scared this time because I felt God going to take her out of the surgery. But he didn't, and she pulled it through. But because of the surgery, and Kaiser are connected to each other, she had to skip her cardiologist yearly, and they had to push it till December. And in December, we found out with the echo that her heart muscle got affected. And usually that heart muscle should be down the road in her 20s, but as early as 4 years, it got affected. And I believe if I didn't go with the surgery in October and I did the echo, we wouldn't know. And the reason why God wanted us to know, so he can prepare us from January till November this year. So that's the first thing. I'm like, he knows what he's doing. Another thing, I have to let everything to God and trust him. The last few days, no one can know how long we have. All what we know, it might be weeks, it might be couple of weeks. I was always wondering how I'm gonna feel, because I sleep to her next to her every night. If I wake up and my daughter is dead, am I gonna freak out? Am I gonna blame God that I was not awake and she passed away while I was asleep? Am I gonna blame myself? And then I thought, what's my alternative? Having her next to me and she passed away in front of me, am I gonna be able to handle this? And I lost sleep. I'm not gonna deny it, every night, because I'm scared to sleep. I did not want to wake up her next to me dead. Till one day, I remember it was Sunday, I felt this is it. And that's the night that even John and her uncle came in her room. I said, Sophia's okay tonight. She's really in a very bad shape. And he was up. I was on the floor, and I guess I took a nap for 2 hours. And as soon as I woke up, I'm like, is she okay? Is she still alive? And they said yes. And I was like, you know what? Between me and God, I said, you do what I can handle. You give me what I can handle. I'm not going to chase it anymore. They went to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning. I slept next to her, and I said, you know what I can handle and what I cannot. I think I know, but actually we don't. He only knows what we can handle, what we can. We think this is way too much. But if he give it to you, he knows you can handle. You just need to stick to him. Because at our weakest point, the devil gets in. And guess what's funny? I had her in my arms when she was taking her last breath. And I was at peace, and I held her for 3 hours after. And I couldn't have done it or thought I can do this or be happy. I did this, God knew. That's why he chose the time, the minute. And as a mom, I didn't imagine I can hold my child's body in my hand for so long, not having a soul. And I saw her when she was taking her last breath. He knew I can handle it. He knew gonna give me closure. He knew this is gonna give me peace. He knew what we can take. We just cannot resist him. Don't like. The only thing I'm doing now, praying. Whenever I feel weak, whenever I miss her, I have to stick to God, because this is my weakest point, that the devil will dig in and try to get to me. And the first thing the devil does, put from God. And I've been there when she was diagnosed first, and I didn't like it. It was very dark. I was depressed. I felt I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay with God. I got upset at God. I stopped praying. I stopped taking communion, and my life was getting ugly. If you fight back and pray and ask God for help and keep on insisting, trust me, he does not give up on us. He never does. And he's the most patient, I cannot say person because he's not the person. He's the most patient thing that ever I've seen in my life. He does not give up on his children, no matter how much we resist him. He just wants us to keep on going. And his grace is unimaginable. His grace will help you through the toughest time ever in your life, and you're going to go and look back and say, how did I get through this? How did I do this? And it's only by God's grace.
So I think we gave you the bulk of Sophia's story. There's a few more stories that we're going to share at another time, but she was an angel and is still an angel, and like I said, we still feel her presence. I know that she's going to be doing her things and hiding things from us and playing with us and visiting us, and we're confident that we know where she is, and we feel not just lucky but blessed that God gave us the time to prepare. I lost my father when I was 13, and it was sudden. There was no illness. There was nothing. It was just here one day, gone the next. It was instant. And the ability to have us prepare mentally, physically, with the ups and downs, the questions, the comfort, the support. We serve such a merciful and loving God that we just can't thank him enough, because as Abuna said, there are people that are probably thinking we're in shock or we're numb, and I don't care what anybody calls it. I'll just tell you, I feel at peace. And I ask that all of you pray for us, that we continue to feel God's grace and his peace and his mercy, because there will be challenging times. There will be times where something will strike a chord with you and you'll remember, oh, when Sophia was here, we did this. But we have to keep remembering Sophia's not gone. Nobody that has departed is gone. And it's a gentle, well, not such a gentle, but it's a reminder that if we want to see her again and join her now, we have to be good to make sure that we reach her and rejoin her in paradise. So if anybody has any questions, that's, I think, the bulk of what we wanted to cover.
Are there one or two or three or however many lessons that you guys would say that throughout this journey you would like to share with us? Is there any specific lessons?
Patient. We have zero patience. And God, first lesson to me, be patient. I was anxious about all the answers, but that's the number one lesson. If you are patient, he will answer you. He will give you what you want, but be patient by all means. Like Job, patient. And I know it's very hard to get, and I told God one day, I'm not Job. Don't you ever treat me like I have his patience. But literally, he wants us to have patience beyond our imagination. Like, it's patient, patient, patient. And if you're going to look at it, he's so much patient with us. So he deserves, I'm not going to say we can never be as patient as he is, but he deserves a little bit extra patience that we normally have in our life. That's the first lesson I learned.
I'll just add to bullet point. So patience would probably be number one. Number two would be reliance on God for everything and in any circumstance. And number three would be trust. I don't know how many of you have like really good friends that you think you can count on. And I know that if I need to call this person at 3 o'clock in the morning for an emergency, this person will be there for me. Well, God's like that for us 24 hours a day. And we just have to remember to utilize our resources and rely and trust in God.
I know this is a very sensitive topic, and a lot of you might feel like you don't know if you should ask questions. That's why we have the anonymous question link right here. Go into this link. You guys can ask whichever questions you want.
Literally, guys, feel free to ask any question. We're here to answer. And I feel this is a message from God that he wants us to deliver his message, because we're normal human beings that go through situation like anyone else and feel the same thing. We're literally normal. We're not saints or anything. God uses us, as John said before. You want to say the example?
Well, I mean, I've had a couple people tell us about how, special they thought we were, and I reminded them, but I only go to the doctor when I'm sick. I don't go to the doctor when I'm healthy. So I think God chose us because he knew we needed this, not because we're special, but because we needed Sophia in our lives to get us back on track or to get us to deliver a message, not because of anything else.
Maybe I can just ask a question until somebody. When did you guys feel that the moment where this was all God talking to you? Like this was all like a plan from God? Because a lot of people have kids, and a lot of people have ill kids, and a lot of people have kids that are terminally ill. And like, when did you know that this is not by some sort of haphazard chance, but this is legitimately like God talking to us through Sophia? Like,
So our answers are definitely different. That first example that I gave when we found her at the bottom of the stairs, that funny feeling in my stomach was a combination of something different's going to happen, but more importantly, we are so blessed that God sent us this message, because we are supposed to be able to rely on our faith. He doesn't need to send us these messages. For my 2-year-old daughter to tell me, Baba Yeshua held my hand and walked me down the stairs, if that wasn't a slap in the face, I don't know what is. And I felt to myself, wow, I really need to change some things about me, because I shouldn't have to receive a message like that to believe in God's will and accept his will and be patient and trust in God. I felt like this is something being sent to me because I am that weak, and that I may not have relied on God had it not been for that message.
I'm going to add to that. I truly believe God talks to us 24 hours. Literally, he talks to us 24 hours. It's either going to be through someone giving you a sentence or giving you a statement. It can be your kid. It can be your friend. It can be your parents. It can be a stranger. The only problem is we're deaf. And I mean it, we're deaf. We concentrate on our problems daily. I was concentrating on my daughter. I didn't even see... I looked at it, how many times I can hit the odds. 1 in a million with that disease. 1 in a million to happen to a girl and not inherited. 1 in a million that every single muscle in her body is damaged. I'm like, this was a clear message. But I was deaf because I was concentrating. God is punishing me. God wants me to suffer. God is... You know how many times I prayed for a miracle for her? And whenever... I pray, they say, pray with all of your heart. I pour my heart and I cry and I kneel, and I'm sure the next day I'm going to wake up, she's healed. God going to make like a huge miracle. The whole world going to talk about it. But it didn't happen, and I blamed God for it. I'm like, okay, he's not doing a miracle. Actually, he had to look at one thing. What God going to benefit by by doing a miracle and heal her? The whole world going to talk about it. A lot of people going to try to find this way why she got healed. Or if I can show people, a 5-year-old did not complain about her illness, was trying to guide her parents with all what's going on. You still have to go to God and pray to God, and people listen to her story. How many people I'm going to be getting? The benefit is more by not healing her and taking her away when she's at that young age. Because now everyone is like, how come? What happened? Why this girl has been seeing God? He used her. And he looks at us, this is temporary. We don't know when is going to be our last day. We don't know, we cannot guarantee the next second in our life. And literally when I used to hear Abunas, all the Abunas saying, we need to be ready. Literally, we need to be ready. And I used to be like, oh, that's the talk of Abuna, that's the talk of the church. But literally, how many times you guys woke up and found one that you know very closely was gone? And we don't know if they were ready or no. He got a little kid, an innocent, because she's innocent. He used her to teach us. We don't know when, and we should not hold on to this world, because there is nothing really is worth it here. Because here we're going to live 100 years or 200 years. Later on, we're going to be in a very nice place. We don't have to worry about sickness. We don't have to worry about bad people. We don't have to worry about our kids to be hurt. He talks 24 hours. If we clear our mind and say, if everyone takes about not even half hour, 10 minutes before they go to sleep and go through what they went through your whole day, how did your day go through? Trust me, you're going to find his voice. We are too loud. We cannot hear him, but he talks. Sometimes he can talk about through a verse, you can, or a situation, or even something that you saw and you noticed it, but we let a lot of stuff go by without noticing it. That's how you know what God is trying to tell you. But he talks to everyone, all of us, every single day.
Another question somebody just sent in asking, how are you guys so at peace with this whole incident? Sorry, what's the question? If you can repeat it in the mic.
So the question is, how are we so at peace? The only thing I could say is God, because I thought I was going to be prepared for this day, and I'll share another story. We had Abuna Joseph from the monastery visiting us once, and he got to know Sophia. And I told him, it's okay, Abuna, I'm at peace right now, but I know when the time comes, it's going to be emotional, the missing somebody. And he shared a story with me, and he said, look, before his mom departed to heaven, she was in Egypt, and he hadn't seen her for several years. And he said that when he departed to heaven, he felt like he was closer to her than when he was living with her in Egypt. And to me, that completely eliminated my one out, where I was kind of preparing myself mentally to to be emotional and all that good stuff. And it just these little messages. And I wish I could tell you, if I would have asked my doctor to medicate me, I don't think I would have been as calm and at peace as I was the day of the burial. I felt during the service that I was attending a wedding and not a funeral. I don't know how to explain it. I wish I can give you a formula or some kind of meditation or preparation that I did, but it's through the grace of God. It's something that we've always asked for. I'll be honest with you. I questioned whether it would happen. I was prepared to have a meltdown, and it just didn't happen. I can be an emotional person, and I'm not that good at faking it, and I can tell you, it just didn't happen, and it was by the grace of God.
I'll answer another part of that. I remember this July, I was getting Sophia ready so she can stay home with her sister and her dad and her grandfather, because we had an extended family member that passed away and we had to go and pay our condolences. So she asked me, "Where are you going?" I said, that person departed and I need to go, and we need to go, me and Baba, and pay our condolences. The first thing she said, "That's not fair. Everyone is going to heaven except of me. When I'm going to go to heaven?" Give me a 5-year-old that can say this. And I believe that was not her saying this. I think that was a message from God telling me she wants to come. Do not hold her. Because I kept on holding her. I'm not going to deny it. I kept on praying to God, "Please don't take her now. Please, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Please do not take her now." And he kept on reminding me, "Don't be selfish. Any mom, her wish on earth will be delivering her children to me, because this is the safest place." And he was trying to tell me, this is her time. This is the time I can guarantee her a spot there. And I cannot be selfish to deny that from her, because my goal is, God give me 2 angels. This is my responsibility. Kids are kids, and all the parents, they know, when you have a kid, they're born, they don't know anything. You teach them about God. You teach them about church. It's your responsibility. And when the day comes, God's going to judge you. He's not going to judge those kids. So I said, I delivered one. Help me to be able to bring the other one to you. And I, as much as I miss my kid, but now I don't have to worry about her, that anything can hurt her. Anything can happen to her. I'm actually worried about the other one, because the other one is protected by the grace of God, but still physically I can see her getting hurt. But the one, she's safe. So that was one of the things that I have to pick and choose my battle. Shall I let go? And if my daughter is literally want to go to heaven, and I ask God to hold her. The other thing, the last day, the whole thing started at 1:50. At 1:40, no, sorry, at 12:50, at 12:40, she was drugged out, literally the last 3 days around the clock, and she looked so swollen that I felt this girl is in pain. And I was not crying, I was not doing anything. She yelled at me, she said, "Mom, I'm okay." And as soon as she said that, and everyone was in the house and heard her, and she spoke clearly. Basically, she was telling me, "Do not worry about me." 10 minutes after, everything was going downhill so fast. Within 4 hours, she was gone. So all of those, if you still, again, going to get yourself out and look what happened to you during the day, you're going to hear the messages and you're going to hear his voice. That was God's voice. Do not worry about her. She's okay. Although you think she's in so much pain and her heart was at its weakest point, she is okay. That gives you peace.
We have another couple more questions we'll take from online. But the next question is, if you can repeat it in the mic for me, how are you guys so okay knowing that God, quote unquote, used Sophia?
So
Repeat the question.
how are we so okay knowing that God, quote, used, unquote, Sophia? I was thinking about how that sounded when it came out, but I want to clarify something. Number one, God can use whoever, whatever he wants. We're going to be okay with it. Number two, I don't look at it from the common definition of used with a negative connotation, like somebody used me and I feel so bad, but rather that he utilized Sophia to send his message. And to us, we see it as a blessing, not as a negative thing.
Sure.
I look at it, I'm honored and humbled for God to use me as a person, because who am I? I'm a sinner. He did me a favor, to bring me here so I can learn, so I can be good, so I can enter his kingdom. For him to use me, I have to thank him every day. It's not a bad thing for God to use us.
Does anybody have anything else? Anybody want to ask anything? Abuna, maybe you can share with us the fact that the funeral fell on the 29th. Can you share that with us? That's maybe that's some.
I'll just get another chair. It's okay. Just
Well, يعني if you came to the funeral, probably I already explained that, but yeah, for just in case if you missed it. And actually, Amba Carolus asked me to say something personal about Sophia, since I've been close to the family and following up since this happened to Sophia. فقلت لهم okay سيدنا. To be honest يعني I talked with John a little bit and just asked him about a couple of the stories to remind me. I mean I know these stories, but I kind of forgot. So he reminded me with a story كده, one story, because I don't want to also because there's so much to say about Sophia, but in the funeral I have only like 5 minutes, so I didn't want to talk for a long time. But I wasn't sure exactly how gonna put it in words or what gonna say exactly. But then as I'm entering the church, I met with Nermine, and she told me, Abuna, you remember that wish that you made? And to be honest, I was forgotten about it, but she reminded me. I said, what wish? She said, remember, he said, I wish if Sophia, God will take her to be around during the holy 50 days, because I told her during the holy 50 days, I believe this is the best message for our church about death. Could be any better, because everybody is in a rejoicing tone. We are celebrating the resurrection of Christ, and as we are celebrating the resurrection of Christ, we are remembering the meaning of death. He completely changed the meaning of death into a bridge to take us to heaven. So death became something desirable all of a sudden, instead of something very horrible, like the people of the Old Testament. And the church will use in the rejoicing tone and just give us a different meaning. That was before the Holy 50 days. And at that time, like I said, Sophia's health was deteriorating. But the Holy 50 days came and passed by, and Sophia was still there. God extended her life. And I completely forgot about this wish till the day of the funeral. And what really stunned me, that the day before we had a liturgy, Friday, the 28th, but I was not really, we don't look at the calendar every day, so sometimes we forget what day of the Coptic calendar. So as I was preparing the Thanksarian to Amba Yusuf from Bolivia, he came to pray the liturgy with us. And as I was preparing the Thanksarian for him, and then I found out it's the 28th, I said, no way. That means tomorrow is the 29th, and we are going to pray the funeral with a rejoicing tune. And you have no idea how this made me happy. And it was just amazing that we're going to remember not just only the resurrection, but also the nativity and the annunciation. So I thought this is really amazing. And this is really a great way of God, also another thing to comfort the family and confirm that this is a true angel coming to heaven. This day we should rejoice and be glad in it, as we say in the psalm, مش كده بنقول on that day we don't, even if it's a Friday, if it came on Friday or كده, we don't use Alleluia Jeff Mefi, but we say Alleluia Phi Baby, which means Alleluia, this is the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it. So I said, oh, that's amazing. And then as I was entering the church, like I said earlier, Nermine reminded me with that wish. I said, oh my God. I said, then I think God sent the message that I should deliver on that day. So it was just amazing. And to be honest, this is one of the most amazing funerals that I ever attended. Attended so many funerals. Just in 20 years of priesthood, imagine how many funerals, and even Egypt, so many. But this is one of a kind. It was a very unique one, and I truly, as John mentioned, we probably most of you felt that was a wedding. This is because really this is the day that the soul will unite with a heavenly groom for eternity. So this is really a wedding day for the person who is departing. So we felt truly this is a wedding, not a funeral. Everybody was comforted and in peace. Even if we were mourning because we're gonna miss Sophia and seeing her in the flesh, but we all felt that she always, her soul be hovering over us, and we're always gonna feel her presence and her blessings, and we're always gonna remember that day and remember Sophia. And she, especially in this church, because she was really part of the biggest contributors to building this church. As probably you know, the charity that John and Nermine started for Sophia to help building the church, and it was just amazing how much we collected, and we're still collecting. This all God's blessing through Sophia. She was always going to be remembered, and always going to feel she was part of building the church. Hopefully one day we'll have a memorial for her here in the church. The right time, inshallah, and in the right way, we're gonna have it here, so we all remember that she was a big contributor to building the church. May God rest her soul, and always bless John, and continue to bless John and Nermine and Angelina with her grace and peace and comfort. And this is really amazing. And if you're saying you are not special before what happened to Sophia, I think now you are going through this and accepting God's will. You're very special now. So God bless you, and continue to pour His grace on the family. Thank you very much.
I'm hoping this would be the last time that we get to hear from you. Hopefully in the future we get to have learn a little bit more and more and more, and just really get in depth more about the story of Sophia. Thank you guys so much, and thank you for those who are actually watching us online. We have about 90 people watching online right now. So thank you for being here with us and witnessing this powerful testimony. And thank you, John and Nermine, for being so gracious to share such deep and sensitive part of your life with us, and being open and vulnerable with us. We really, really appreciate you coming through. So we're accustomed to doing this part of our segment called